Joining us now, Andy McCarthy, former assistant U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York, and, of course, Fox and NRO contributor, joins us now. Andy, what of that? You know, you hear people throwing out fruit of the poisonous tree, but does that really apply here?
Yeah, you're exactly right, Laura. The fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine, as you say, is a criminal law doctrine about suppressing evidence. This is counterintelligence. Counterintelligence is an information gathering exercise. Once you learn something, you've learned it. It's not like they're going to, purge information. So, no, it doesn't apply.
Andy, the focus now is on these ongoing negotiations between the Trump team and the Mueller team about the grounds that would be acceptable for any interview or written answers to questions by the president. What's at stake here, and what do you assess the state of the situation to be?
Laura, I still think, as I've thought from the beginning, that the burden here is on the wrong side. Everybody is looking to whether the president will agree to, some procedural terms for this interview. And it seems to me that having been a prosecutor for a long time, you don't just get to interview the president because it would be interesting. You're supposed to be able to show that there's a serious crime that the president is somehow implicated in, and that the president is the source of information without which you can't prove the case, and which you can't get from anyone else except the president. If he can't satisfy those two things, I don't even know why we're talking about whether he should sit down with him or not. And I don't understand at this stage, in 90% of cases, I guess you could say that investigative secrecy is a high priority, and everybody gets that because the rule of law is important and law enforcement is important. But here we have a case where there are more important interests, like the governance of the country, and I don't understand at this point, 2 years down the road, why it isn't appropriate to just say, look, Mr. Mueller, with all due respect to you, the integrity of the secrecy of your investigation is a less high priority here. Put your cards on the table, show us what you got, and if there's a serious crime that the president's implicated in, all right, then, we should talk about whether it's by subpoena or how he sits down, have the interview. But first, we need something from this prosecutor.
Well, don't you agree that the terms, though, that the Trump team are laying out, I mean, the rumored terms, 2 to 3 hours, very limited questions, if any, about obstruction, only focused on collusion, those are never going to be acceptable to the Mueller team, correct? I mean, that's not going to ever work.
Well, again, it really depends on whether, the Mueller team are beggars or choosers, right? So if they have a serious case and they have a kind of an entitlement to speak to the president, then they shouldn't agree to any terms. On the other hand, if this is entirely voluntary because they don't have anything on the president anyway, then they're not exactly playing with the House money, right? They should have to agree to the president's terms. But, it's hard for us to assess this in the dark because they don't tell us what the case is about.
Well, and again, the president doesn't know, his legal team does not know what the Mueller team has.
Right.
I mean, so, if Toobin was on TV yesterday, we don't need to play the bite. We've already played it. But, of course, Toobin says, there's no such thing as a perjury trap. Well, is that true?
Oh, God.
Is that true? How do you go on TV saying that? But that's what he said. There's no such thing. If you have nothing to worry about, then you have nothing to worry about. Is that the case, Andy?
No, that's ridiculous. I mean, the fact that you don't have anything to worry about, that is to say you don't think you've done anything wrong, is not the only calculus in the equation. What you have to assess, especially as a defense lawyer, is what does the prosecutor think, right? I could be completely confident that my client is innocent. My client could be completely confident that he's done nothing wrong. But if Mueller has a theory of guilt and he can steer you into it, it doesn't matter whether you think you're not guilty or not. The worry you have is that he may decide to prosecute you. So, of course, there's a perjury trap. In fact, just think about General Flynn's case, Laura. They had the tape of his conversation or the recording of his conversation with the Russian diplomat. They didn't need to interview him about that. They had the tape. But so what did they do? They brought him in to interview him about the details of something they already had a recording of.
Mm-hmm.
And why would you do that other than, to try to trip him up? Now, maybe there was some coded reference that they needed to understand, but I don't think that's what happened. I think they tried to trip him up on something they already had a recording
And
of.
even then, Peter Strzok reportedly went back to headquarters and said he didn't think he lied.
Right. It wasn't until Mueller's guys came along that they reassessed.
Yeah, first of all, you don't sit down with FBI agents without a lawyer. Here's just one thing. Don't sit down with a prosecutor, the police, of agents without a lawyer present. But I think he truly I mean, look, I don't know about Mike Flynn's past stuff, but I just think on this, Mike Flynn is like, I don't have anything to hide. Sure, you ask me questions. I mean, otherwise he would have stopped the interview.
I think he probably didn't even think it was that kind of an interview.
Not a big deal.
Think about it. He's a national security advisor on his third or fourth day on the job,
yep.
And he's talking to the top guy in counterespionage in the FBI. When the guy came in, he probably thought it was a business meeting. I don't even think he had any idea he was being interviewed as a suspect.
No, I think that's exactly right. So at this point, let's say they come to a standstill, and there's no budging either way on this, and
right.
and they don't agree on the terms. What are the chances that you think that Mueller will try to subpoena the president?
I think they're pretty high, and this is just reading tea leaves, but it just seems to me that he's expending an awful lot of effort on, for example, Manafort, who's now looking at two trials, and with Manafort, they even squeezed his accountant and one of his lawyers to testify in the case. I think that when you're playing the game at those kinds of stakes, I can't see these guys passing up the chance of a subpoena and figuring look, we'll litigate it. If we lose, we lose. But I can't see them just saying, nah, never mind, we won't do this. I don't see it.
Yeah. So, and then at that case, and I asked Sekulow about this last night, Andy. I pressed him on it. I said, "Are you all briefed up already? Are you guys have the briefs ready?" I think we have the bite. We'll play the exchange because I know Emmett Flood. He's my old co-clerk on the Second Circuit. I can't imagine that most of this isn't already done. Let's listen.
If there was a issuance of a subpoena, which is a serious question, and I do not think the Justice Department has the authority in this case and would authorize it because Bob Mueller's not an independent counsel. He can't do that himself. Are we ready to go to court if we had to? You bet. Do I think we're going to have to? I don't think so. If we do, we'll do it. I mean, look, you got to protect not just this president, but the presidency. That's what's at stake here.
He thinks that Mueller doesn't have the authority to issue a subpoena. Can you explain his thinking on that?
Well, yeah, I guess if we're going to do law instead of politics, and I wish we could because there's been way too much politics here, Mueller is an inferior executive officer.
Mm-hmm.
The president is the chief executive. If the president decides he shouldn't be subpoenaed, who is Mueller to countermand that? So then
that's an issue that would have to be, that's argument number 1, 2, or 3 in the briefing, correct?
I think it's certainly an argument that has a better shot in a courtroom than it has in the court of public opinion that this game is being played in at the moment, right?
Yeah, so again, let's talk about the non-legal issue for a moment. And I think that the Mueller team is hoping that this might have some influence on their thinking as well. If it looks like the president is afraid to talk to Mueller, does that play out negatively toward the president, or because the 48% of the country doesn't trust Mueller anyway, according to that July poll, that it's kind of a wash either way?
Yeah, I think the latter. I think, Laura, you and I are kind of lawyer geeks, so we've had our eye on the ball that the president can't be indicted here, at least while he's a sitting president, right? So what I've been saying all along, especially to the people who think my old boss, Rudy Giuliani, has been goofy out there sometimes with some of the things he says, Rudy is not playing this like a normal defense lawyer who's worried that his client is going to be indicted. This is an impeachment thing which is a political process that plays out in the court of public opinion and can't happen if there's not a broad consensus of public opinion in favor of the idea that the president needs to be removed. So I think what these guys have been trying to do is discredit the investigation, and they've done a good job of it. I think I looked at the polling recently. I think Mueller's numbers have come down like 15 points.
Yeah, they're way down. Even among Democrats, they're down.
Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, when people, and I have said this, President Trump, stop tweeting about Mueller and stuff. Well, he's playing his own game on this. He truly believes it's unfair. He truly believes it's a distraction from the really important business of running this country, hugely expensive, and he's going to sound off. And look, he's had an effect on this process. So again, just for our listeners' understanding of how this would play out. So let's say there is a subpoena. Let's say Rosenstein, in your theory, couldn't sign off on it, or Sessions, because they're all inferior to the president,
right.
Correct?
Right.
And Sessions has recused himself.
This is not an independent counsel. I mean, they like to think of it as independent, but he's in the Justice Department chain of command, and the top Justice Department officials are in the administration chain of command. Everybody works for the unitary executive, who is Trump.
Yeah, well, and I think that, again, the president could, again, as the chief executive, he could demand that all the documents, correct, that they have, and all the interview notes, those are all declassified, right? They're all released. He could demand that, correct?
Yeah, I've been asking that he do it for a year and a half now. I wish he would.
Yeah, I wonder why he's not. Someone's obviously telling him not to do that. I wonder why he's not doing that.
I think because he knows that if he does it, that these guys will all say he's obstructing Mueller's investigation and destroying investigative integrity and all that stuff.
Yeah. So would they? Do you think as part of this, the report that they ultimately write, the effort to discredit Mueller will be considered an effort to obstruct the investigation? That they're going to put that somewhere in the report, right?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a scathing report at the end. I don't think it's going to level any charges, but I think Mueller will feel like, given his background and his career, that he's got to sort of protect the Justice Department and the FBI, and he'll say that there was, profound reasons to be curious here, and that they may have had a few excesses, but this was worth investigating, and then he'll talk about all the different explanations that the president gave at different times for things like firing Comey. It'll be I think it's not going to charge any crimes, and he's not going to say he found, an espionage conspiracy with Russia, but it's going to be an ugly report, I think. Yeah,
and I think, again, he has really smart people. Mueller has really smart people on his team. They're good lawyers, and and I said from the beginning, the president needed a primo team from at the very top, and finally he got Emmett in, who's fantastic. Yep. But I don't know if they have enough people on the Trump side. I just don't know. But it's going to be ugly. Andy McCarthy, thanks so much. Always so great to talk to you. I always feel smarter after talking to Andy. We'll take a break. Don't go away. Thanks for listening to this podcast excerpt of The Laura Ingraham Show. If you'd like to receive podcasts of our complete shows, go to lauraingraham.com and sign up to become a member of Laura 365. Our Laura 365 members get commercial-free streams and podcasts of our shows every day we're on the air. And also, you can listen to the last 30 days of The Laura Ingraham Show. Be ahead of the curve. Join Laura 365.